So, Beto O'Rourke is not our senator in Texas, thank God. That was a near miss because Ted Cruz, I don't know, the dude creeped me out. I don't like him, but he said the right things. He's all about not being racist. Definitely stuck to policy in his debates, which was a smart thing because he's usually full of shit when he tries to go outside his boundaries and talk some smack, and it doesn't work. Fortunately, he nailed Beto on all of his talking points, called it out for what it is, said it was socialist, which it is, it's insane, and rolled with it. And it made Beto look a little bit more crazy than he's supposed to. Plus, he couldn't help but drop out the social justice talking points that he has white privilege, and because of that white privilege, he was able to reclaim his life as if no one else in his position would be able to do so. I'll have a different video on that eventually, where I was looking up some different stats. Somebody gave me a different argument on that, and that's besides the point. But I wanted to talk about, since we're talking about Texas as being one of the border states to Mexico, I was thinking about this caravan. So we know a few things about the caravan. There's some assumptions, and then there's some facts. So some of the assumptions is that it's funded by globalists or some shit, Soros or whatever. That it's organized by campaigners, usually lefty, liberal, crazy ones. And it has some serious backing. There's some definite facts. There are criminals within the caravan, that, if you want to call it that. I would call it a migrant army, personally, because that's how they're behaving. But let's go with caravan, just because. And we know that they're mostly men. There's very few women and children there. Some did go probably with their husbands or family or whatever. Hoping that all of them can get a better life. We know that not all of them are asylum seekers. In fact, very few are, because out of 6,000, about 300 actually asked for asylum in Mexico. When they hit the U.S. border, none of them asked for asylum. Instead, they started throwing rocks and shit at the Border Patrol agents, causing people to shut down the border, and they got tear gassed. They got women and children tear gassed because they decided instead of trying to get here legally, they're going to force their way through. That's called an invasion. So it looks like Trump was right on that tactic, and I would believe it too, because they marched to the border as if they were foot soldiers in some Greek army. Like it was an ancient army, semi-armed, because their countries disarmed all of them, so thank God for that. And they marched to the border to force entry. Sounds a lot like a home invasion, if you ask me. It's pretty much the same fucking thing, just on a country scale instead of an individual scale. They're trying to force their way through the fucking door, not asking for permission, and taking what they want. Not looting and rioting and all that shit. No, they come here and they're going to try and get jobs and do whatever else when we have an unemployment rate where other people need those jobs that are actually U.S. citizens. And basically just disrupt everything, because why not? Their states suck. So, to be an asylum seeker, you need to be running away from your government. And the government needs to be after you. I find it odd that neither government tried to stop these people. Just let them go. Why would that be? If the government's just like, nah, you can leave. We don't need you anyways. Why? Why would that be the case? I also thought it odd that once they marched all the way there's 4 states that neighbor the U.S.-Mexico border. There's New Mexico, there's Arizona, there's Texas, and there's California. So out of those 4 states, they went to the furthest border away from where they started, which was Central America. Why was that? And I think it can be easily painted out, if you think about it. So, what do we know? We know that our news, everything that we say and do, all the cycles, all the arguments, the bitter arguing, who's arguing for what, who's advocating for what, everybody knows. The whole world fucking knows what the Democrats and Republicans are. You watch the British commentary from, say, Sargon of Akkad or Paul Joseph Watson, or hell, any of the ones that are on that side, they talk about Republicans and Democrats. You listen to people from Australia, from Denmark, from hell, even V from communist Romania knows who the Democrats and the Republicans are. They moderately know what those people stand for. So, take the policies. One of them wants to give Medicaid for all, reduce the borders, get rid of Border Patrol, ICE in particular, Medicaid for all, make it easier living, make it living wage, up the minimum wage, in other words, and free college, free education, just an easy ride, welfare state, if you will. That's usually what it's called. The other one is the Republican side, which is more meritocracy, earn what you keep, learn a trade and become proficient in it to be more productive to society. Kind of, the more traditional values. Zero welfare state. They do not like the welfare state. I personally lean on the other side, where there does need to be a social safety net. Welfare, maybe not so much, because I've seen it abused. I've had family that work in that field, so it's recklessly abused by a lot of people, and I mean a lot, where they purposely get divorced and have 6 kids so they can claim food stamps and get all that stuff, but they're still living with their husband. So when the social worker comes to check in on them, the husband's not there. He keeps minimal stuff there at times, but it doesn't look like he's living there. It looks like only her and the kids are living there because the place is a mess. It's usually how they do it. It's pretty shady. And I know of a few times where they've caught the husband living there, but what they had to do was basically tail the guy. But if they're truckers or something like that, then you can't trail them. They just show up on the weekends, essentially, and the rest of the time they're out on a big rig. It's pretty shady, to say the least. But there's only one of the two parties that are doing that, and there's only one state that is advocating for it. Out of the 4 states, only one of them has sanctuary cities. Out of the 4 states, only one of them has advocated and has passed state-level policies to grant not asylum seekers, but migrants easy access to jobs, education, even tried to get them access to vote, even though they're not U.S. citizens, which is a federal crime, by the way. Good job. So, lowest common denominator. Why did they skip the closest 3 states and go to California? Simple answer is they went to the place they're most likely to get the easiest life possible. The path of least resistance is often the one most followed. And that goes for physics and it goes for people. People don't like trying the hard way to get things done. They would rather have it simplified, easy, made it stupid-proof or idiot-proof, however you want to put it. Which is why, for example, warning labels on buses and stuff, where you have public access stuff, it's either written in 2 languages, and it's usually got a picture on it showing you what not to do, right? Take the shopping cart, for example. It shows, or at least it used to, show kids don't stand in the basket, don't stand in the seat, and don't sit the opposite way or the sideways. Put your legs through the hole and sit this way and put the buckle on. That's what it shows in the picture, without any words, because they try to make it idiot-proof. That's the government's job, is to try to cause the least amount of harm. So they went to the state that would give them the freest stuff. Plain and simple. Why did they choose California out of all the other 3 states? They passed 3 states to get to California. They went there because of sanctuary cities, because of free Medicaid for all, free education, pathway to citizenship that's easier than most states, even though they have to go through the federal stuff anyways. And they didn't ask to come in. They tried to force their way in. They used women and children as a shield, and then threw rocks at the Border Patrol trying to push their way through, and then they got tear gassed, forcing them to go back. 40 or 50 of them actually got past the first try. All 40 or 50 of them got arrested the first try. The border has been shut down thanks to these idiots. And it's only going to get worse. Even Tijuana doesn't want them there. It's It's fairly obvious. Even more are coming, but that's only half the story. Why are they going to California, full of liberal idiots that want to enact socialism, like Jim Carrey, that says, let's not apologize for socialism, and Bill Mayer that agrees that you should not apologize for socialism when it's the worst fucking idea on the planet. Guess what their countries are and why they're fleeing poverty, as we should take sympathy upon these people as asylum seekers fleeing their government policies and their government mentality and basically the oppression that's causing mass poverty within their country. Well, guess what? The two countries that we know of, El Salvador and Honduras, are socialist countries. These people are fleeing socialism to come to the United States. They went to the border with the least possible resistance, because the other ones, I can guarantee you what would happen in Texas is they probably get shot, not by the Border Patrol, but by the ranchers and farmers sitting at the border. So if they tried to hop the fence, they'd just get shot. They tried to go to Arizona. That was one of the places they stopped along the way, and I believe New Mexico as well. The ones that tried to cross the border, they were caught because they had thermal imaging drones up, and they caught all of them and sent their ass back home. So where'd they go? Tijuana. Why? Largest path of entry, easiest port to go through, and California is so liberal that they'd welcome them in open arms and probably give them shelter and then turn their entire state into a living nightmare. It's bad enough that you have people shitting all over the streets in San Francisco. There's needles there. They have to do a needle pickup. I mean, seriously? How fucking disgusting is that? But you're the most liberal and most caring state out there. Why your state burns? Because you would rather make safety laws for straws than do something about your forest that's dead. I mean, seriously. I thought it was interesting, though, because think about it. You don't need NGOs. If everybody knows what's going on in the United States, that means Honduras, the people of Honduras and El Salvador and all that, were watching our debates. They're watching the people talk, and the people from California are like, let's let the migrants in. We should be loving and caring to all migrants and minorities. We should protect the people of color and give them a living wage, and the 1% or the 10% own all the wealth, and we should separate and segregate all that wealth and give it to all the people. And all the people saying it live in California. So where do these people go that have nothing? To California. Why? Because they think the people of California are going to give them free shit. They can live here with the least amount of effort for the most amount of money and probably make on welfare more than they would make in Honduras in a year in 1 month. Why? Because Honduras and El Salvador are socialist countries and they pretty much ruin their own economies. Way to go, guys. So that's all I have for this video. I thought it was kind of interesting to think about that the whole reason they went to California and skipped 3 other states and took the longest trip possible was to go to the most liberal state and try to force entry. Not ask for entry, not seek asylum, because they'd have to prove that they're fleeing their government, and trying to earn a better life is not a reason for asylum, meaning that they are migrants, they are fleeing socialism, and we're not so forgiving about 7,000 to 10,000 people at our border trying to force entry in. I mean, Cuba did this not too long ago, but Cuba had also a good reason to do it, and they went straight to Florida. And the people in Florida took them in, most of them, but they tried to die on the way. I mean, all of them got on a raft and started rowing, and not all of them made it. These guys hitched a ride, were armed, spit in the face of Mexico, the country, the whole country, walked straight through the middle of it and said, we don't want your shit, we want America. I mean, how disrespectful do you have to be to walk through one person's yard, to go to the next neighbor's yard and try to rob them? Because that's what they did in Mexico. They walked straight through the middle of Mexico, took all the free stuff that they got from Mexicans, clothes, food, shelter for the day or whatever, left the place like a shithole, went to the next house. It's like they're squatters, is what it's like, but on a country level. It's pretty sad. So what can be done about it? Well, They clearly don't want to go back. Should we let them in? There's a possibility that maybe we should. But they shouldn't all be going to California because they'd fuck California up badly. They shouldn't all go to Texas either. Maybe, just maybe, we should train them to be a militia and take over their own country.
Start on my signal. Now do it.
You men, attack!
You don't have anything to be afraid of if you're doing the right thing.